I think sometimes we take pronouns a little bit for granted. We don't pay much attention to them, but they are everywhere in our language. And they require a certain bit of knowledge to negotiate them in a way that is effective for communication. So the most common pronoun or pronoun type is the personal pronoun. And within the personal pronoun, we have a few subsets that we're going to talk about in a bit. But the personal pronoun, you should be really familiar with that. It's I, me, you, he, him, she, her, they, them, and so on. Demonstrative pronouns, this, that, these, those, indefinite pronouns, and there are many of these, all, any, anyone, several, either, everyone, everybody, those kinds of words are indefinite pronouns. And we are going to circle around and come back to more about indefinite pronouns because it's really important that we understand certain things about them so that we can use them correctly. There are the interrogative pronouns. We use these pronouns in questions. In questions, they're not actually acting as pronouns. Where we see them acting as pronouns is when we use them in phrases or clauses. So in that case, they're acting more like a pronoun rather than a question word. Relative pronouns, same kind of thing. They replace pronouns in phrases and clauses. So which, who, whom, whose, that, and so on. And then we have these reflexive pronouns, myself, yourself, as well as intensive pronouns. Myself used as in I myself or you yourself. For this series of slides, we're going to focus mostly on personal pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, and indefinite pronouns. So those are the ones that come up when we're talking about these kinds of issues. So this, that, which, and it must refer to a specific antecedent, not an entire sentence. So what do I mean by that? Well, these kinds of pronouns can be really vague, and we don't want our communication to be vague. We want our audience to understand immediately what we're talking about. We don't want them to have to do some convoluted thinking in their brain. And some of this thinking that goes on when our message isn't clear can be kind of subconscious, but it takes time and it diminishes the effectiveness of our message. So we always, and this is especially the case in public relations, we always want our messages to be clear and concise. So let's look at this example. Radiation therapy is used to treat cancer. This can be rewarding. Okay, well, sure, if we're looking at this, we can probably think, well, they must be talking about the radiation therapy. But it's slightly on the vague side, so we don't want this to be vague. We can say radiation therapy is used to treat cancer. This therapy can be rewarding. And now it just makes much more sense. It's very clear. Be careful not to mistake possessives for antecedent. So what do I mean by possessives? Well, anytime we have, say, an apostrophe S at the end of a word. So on the side of Marshall's car, so Marshall is a possessive, he put his company's website address. So there's a lot of pronouns in here, he and his, and it's a little bit much. And if you look at it closely, what we're really, that first he, the he put his, the he is actually referring to Marshall, not Marshall's car. So that might not be immediately evident. Maybe we're making some leaps in our head and figuring that out subconsciously, but that is not a clear sentence. So instead we can say, on the side of Marshall's car, Marshall put his company's website and address, and now the message is much clearer. So as communicators, we always need to be evaluating our messages and making sure that we're actually saying what we think we're saying. This is a common error. We sort of have all this information in our head, and so we think that we are getting this information out, but we're missing something because the message is so obvious to us. It may or may not be as obvious to our audience. So we have to be thinking like our audience. Establish clear antecedents. So antecedent is just a fancy word for the noun that the pronoun is referring to. So I like reading stories that tell you about strange characters. What the heck is going on there? I like reading stories that tell you about strange characters. So the you in this case seems to refer to a generalized audience. But this is really mixed up because I started out talking about I, and now I'm on to talking about you. So that creates a certain amount of confusion. Instead, I like reading stories that tell me about strange characters. Okay, let's look at another one. They say that the Sphinx was a very odd character in Greek mythology. Well, who is this they anyway? This they is someone that we're always kind of throwing this word out about. They did this or they did that. We need to be precise in our language. Who is they? Historians say that the Sphinx was a very odd character in Greek mythology. And now our message is much clearer. So avoid ambiguous antecedents. She had to work late, which meant that she missed the bus. Okay, well, if we've already established in the paragraph that we're talking about Kylie, this might be fine. But when we are writing, we have to make sure that we're not throwing out pronouns when we actually should be re-referencing the antecedent, who the pronoun is talking about. So be aware of that. Maybe if you're writing a novel, you're going to reiterate the name of the person that's being referenced at the beginning of each paragraph, or if the paragraphs are extra long, maybe it needs to be a couple times within a paragraph. So there needs to be that awareness that people will lose track of who you're talking about if you're always just using their pronoun. So Kylie had to work late, which meant that she missed the bus. Now, there's no question about who she is. We know it's Kylie. Great. So here's another issue we can run into. Dr. Santos told Jim that he needed to get more rest. So who is Dr. Santos? Is Dr. Santos a she, a he, or a they? Well, this doesn't tell us. Jim sounds like a he, but we don't really know, right? So what do? We feel like this is all very ambiguous and we're a bit confused as the reader. We can actually get away with fewer words, be more concise, and get our message across better if we just leave that whole extra pronoun out of there and say Dr. Santos told Jim to get more rest. So look for these kinds of fixes that not only get rid of the problem of the ambiguous pronoun, but make our writing more concise as well. Okay, case. I don't want you to panic about this. This isn't super hard. I think when these words get thrown around, it's a little bit scary. but I'll try to simplify it for you. So there are three cases: subjective, objective, and possessive. And you might be thinking, what does that mean? Those are big words. They are big words, and they're scary, and they don't need to be. The textbook talks about the subject case and the object case and the possessive case. Really, when we're talking subjective, we're just talking about subject. A pronoun that replaces a subject or is used in the place of the subject of the sentence. Objective case functions as an object within a sentence. So we know what objects are, we know what subjects are, so this isn't scary. Possessive simply means that the case shows ownership. And I have included links to a couple of videos that might help you out with some of this stuff. So let's look at a little table here. Here we have the three different cases: the subjective or subject of the sentence, the objective or the object of the sentence, the possessive, meaning the ownership. So first person, I is the subject case, so I went to see the doctor. Or we if it's in the plural, so we walked down the street. Those same pronoun references, when we make them into objects, are me and us. So I might say something like, he, that's the subject of the sentence, helped me get up on the horse. So I am an object within that sentence. Using us, I might say something like, the man is the subject of the sentence, followed us down the street. Now we, us, are an object within that sentence. So the possessive might be my or mine, our or ours. And then for the subjective of you, second person that's called sometimes, and you don't need to know first, second, and third person. I'm just putting that up there so that we have something to reference it with. So for the second person, subjective and objective case are the same. So you went to the store. I went to the store with you. So you can be in the place of the subject, and it can be in the place of an object as well. Third person, he, she, it, they. So he went to the store. He is the subject of the sentence. I went to the store with him. Him is an object in the sentence. Okay, so I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Watch the rest on part 2 of this video.